I can't believe it worked. Those nuts from the Silver City were right. Even a broken clock is right twice a day. For now, that doesn't matter. I'm free. Oh, how I miss the fresh air. Although things up here aren't exactly as I remembered. I still feel a strange weight in my heart. I can sense it. If I died now, I'd go straight back to that place. I have to do everything to prevent that from happening, which means clearing the weight from my soul. I'm not exactly in a situation where I can help others. Hell, I can barely help myself. For now, I'm living in a homeless shelter while trying to find a job, which is kind of a hard thing to do when you don't have documents, or a history, or any kind of record. I mean, I did have these things once, but after I died, I'm sure my dear wife, with all her love and passion, threw them in the trash. The library's Wi-Fi sucks, and this computer must be older than the concept of time, but it'll do. It has to. I stumbled upon this place while searching for experiences similar to mine. I have no idea if half the accounts here are real, but I hope you believe me. I escaped from hell. I still vividly remember the centuries I spent there. Yeah, centuries. Time seems to move differently when you die. I'm writing this here in an attempt to do a good deed and stay in the good graces of the man upstairs. Maybe by reading this, you'll decide to live a good life like monks in Sumeria, or donate all your belongings to the first charity that comes along, become good people. But if for some reason you end up in that place anyway, let this serve as a quick guide of what not to do. And if you're lucky, survive hell and find a way out. I'm getting strange looks from the lady behind the counter. I better hurry up. I still remember the sensation upon waking up. One moment, I was on the operating table, vision blurred, a doctor yelling at the anesthesiologist, lights dancing. From what I could gather, the bastard had gone out to have fun a few hours before my surgery, clocked in not so sober, and ended up screwing up the dosages, waking me up at the worst moment. A domino effect started, resulting in a massive loss of blood. When I came to my senses, I was dead. It was horrible. I feel claustrophobic just remembering it. It was as if I were trapped in a cast of cement covering my entire body. I couldn't see. I couldn't breathe. A tremendous weight on my heart emerged, as if an anvil had been placed upon my chest. I felt immense dizziness and an overwhelming sense of fear and shame. I wanted to scream and cry, anything to get me out of that prison. Something heard my prayers. I was ripped out of my body. That monument of flesh and bones was no longer necessary for me. I stayed still, coming to my senses, watching the doctors desperately try to save me, but it was futile. I felt watched, as if something was evaluating me from all sides. A primal fear rose up my throat as I collapsed into tears. Remembering it now, I think I finally understood. My soul knew exactly what was happening, and it could feel where I was going. I begged, screamed on my knees for one more chance, but how many billions before me had done the same? What reason did they have to listen to me? I felt like I was falling. I saw myself passing through the floor as I struggled to rise. I fell, lower than the deepest pit, lower than the earth, lower than this earthly plane. My hands trembled just remembering. I fell like a shooting star through a dark sky. A foul air filled my lungs as my eyes adjusted to the sight below me. Up here, we have many names for it. Hell, abyss, limbo. Down there, they all call it Gehenna, the last city to ever exist. My first day in Gehenna was like those of many who came before me. I fell like a sack of shit into a pit of tar. Still in shock from it all, I struggled to get out. That black goo is always as hot as Satan's oven, sticking to your skin, and if you don't get rid of it quickly, it can dissolve you in a matter of minutes. I fought until I was out of strength and sank, agonizing as if drowning in boiling oil, my screams of pain muffled by the pit until my last moment. For the second time that day, I died. Imagine my surprise when I woke up again, falling directly into the Black Lake. I don't remember how many times I suffered in that loop until I finally managed to escape, naked and with my legs red raw. Around me, collapsed buildings and filthy houses, uneven ground with sharp and jagged rocks everywhere I went, a black sky through which people fell constantly, and a foul air that weighs heavy and hurt to breathe. I could hear strange grunts, like those of a hyena. With fear gripping me, I followed my instincts and fled, running aimlessly with bare feet sinking into the ground towards the city. I could hear something following me, several things hunting me. They seemed to be enjoying the exercise. I don't know what was worse, not knowing where they were or what they looked like. In the distance, I could see what looked like the entrance to a subway. Without thinking, I ran, fear propelling my body, which only became heavier with each step. I could hear the painting of several creatures behind me. The flapping of wings and the cacophony of guttural laughter prevented me from looking back. The exhaustion was overwhelming, the pain indescribable. I stayed focused only on the subway, and maybe I could lose them down there. With one last effort, I threw myself down the stairs and was embraced by darkness. I crouched behind a bench and covered my mouth, trying to control my breathing. And with my eyes fixed on the stairs, I could clearly see the figure of the monster descending them. At first glance, its appearance reminded me of a skinless lion, but it was much larger than the king of the jungle. Its 2 pairs of eyes resembled those of a reptile, jaw opened wide, displaying 2 rows of uneven, sharp teeth, wings like those of a raven. Its 4 legs proudly displayed huge claws still stained with blood from its last hunt, and its tail was almost as large as its body, coated with a carapace and ending in a sharp point, reminiscent of a scorpion's stinger. I was too scared and tired to do anything other than be quiet and wait, hoping it would miss me. Too tired to realize that with its physique, catching a wounded prey shouldn't be difficult, and too tired to notice the dozens of others lurking in the darkness. Too tired to realize I had been led to its lair. As I was massacred by the pack, I could tell they were doing everything possible to keep me alive until the last moment. Cruelty was ingrained in their nature. As I fell once again towards the pitch pit, I finally noticed that every piece, every being in this place was made solely to agonize and torture, to cause pain and lamentation. As I died for the 3rd time in the same day, I came to understand the true nature of hell. Eventually, I managed to escape from the pit and the pack of hunters, fleeing far from the city, away from the buildings, and collapsed at the entrance of a cave. Guess this is a good stopping point for now. It's almost time for my job interview. A former convict chef gave me a chance to work at his burger joint. It's not the best, but I can't afford to be picky right now. Hell holds many dangers. If you find yourself there upon death, go as far away as possible from the tar pits. It's the favorite hunting ground for the scavengers. All right, here we are, back in the same dusty corner of the library. I'm starting to think I'm the only one who uses this computer. Better this way. I don't want to rush anything. I've lived decades with my senses on edge without being able to rest. I think I deserve some peace after all I've been through. Good news. I got the job. Frying burgers is as fun as it sounds, but hey, it pays for the room I'm staying in and leaves me with some change to eat. For now, I have nothing to complain about. My first week at work was easy compared to my first week in hell. I don't like suspense, so I'll cut to the chase. I had no clue what I was doing. When I woke up, I was thirsty and famished. I would eat those creatures if they weren't so terrifying. I've always liked to feel in control, and having backup plans for my backup plans. That's how it was in my company. That's how I was in my life. I've always been this way since school. It was what caught the attention of my now ex-wife. She said I had strong leadership traits, and that I was destined to lead people or some crap like that. I don't remember exactly, it's been centuries after all. The point is, for the first time in my life, well, now afterlife, I was completely lost. Naked, distressed, and injured, the full mortal package. Before wandering aimlessly, I needed to at least sort out the chaos that had taken over my mind. At this point, I had it right. If any of you end up in that place, just accept that you're screwed and try to make the best of it. Denial won't get you anywhere. I was dead. I was in hell. And for some reason, I could still die, but always came back to the same place. Those things. I definitely didn't want to see them again. So, in the end, I decided that the city was a horrible place, but where to go next? I needed clothes, food, and shelter. Peering through the mouth of the cave, I saw the place I had arrived in my desperation to escape those pits of torture. A gray plain with dead, twisted trees. They were as tall as pine trees, but all bore a hauntingly human shape in their trunks. I felt watched as I looked around. In the distance, the city still stood out among the throng of people descending upon its skyscrapers. At that moment, I wished so much to have escaped with someone. I've never been a very needy guy, but when the fear of the unknown embraces you, your primal instincts tell you to seek salvation in numbers. In truth, I was lucky not to have bumped into one of those psychos so soon. I just didn't know it yet. Without much choice, I slowly emerged from the cave and ventured deeper into the depths of the forest. Hell is strange. Its flora, fauna, and biomes have been meticulously engineered to cause stress and confusion in humans. Yet amidst it all, its inhabitants have found a way to adapt. As I walked through the corrupted forest, I could hear strange wails echoing through the wind. Sometimes they seemed to draw near, but there was never anything when I turned around. My throat longed for water. I was so tired. But I had to continue. Something was off with that place. I feared that if I fell asleep, I would turn into one of those weird trees and be stuck there until the end of times. So I kept walking. Even when the trees grew mouths that whispered promises of an eternal and blissful dream. Even when their branches became hands so gentle and charitable, only seeking companionship. They were so lonely, seeming to have waited millennia for me. Even when the earth became green and vibrant before my eyes, a small part of me resisted. I knew what it meant to accept all that beautiful lie. Somehow, I managed to make it through the forest in one piece. I know, what a lucky bastard. I found myself staring at the edge of a long, bubbling red river, its bank adorned with wooden stakes. To this day, I have no idea who made all that. The river flowed to the horizon, where I glimpsed the spire for the first time. Look, Dante's Inferno is nothing but a damned fanfic writer who inserted himself into his work and somehow echoed through history. But he got one thing right in that book. Hell is divided into levels. The spire is a colossal marble column that traverses the circles of hell. the only way to ascend or descend. Its silhouette is unmistakable, with protrusions resembling spikes jutting out from the sides, each with hundreds of feet in length, making it imposing no matter from which angle you see it. I had no idea at the time, but I was wandering through the welcome hall of the abyss, the second circle of hell. Lust. My first instinct was to pull one of the stakes from the ground and use it for my protection. I clung to that with all my sanity and felt lighter seeing that I had no means of defense. I continued walking along the bank in search of something and anything that could help me survive. From time to time, I would see the shadow of something large passing through the clouds and would throw myself to the ground, trying to blend into the dead grass and not be seen. The hunger was unbearable. I felt weak. Easy prey. I needed to eat. Nothing ever comes easy in hell. I was about to learn this the hard way. After hours of walking, I was greeted with something different in the dead landscape. A solitary bridge that allowed crossing the boiling river. Alongside it, a new sound came to my ears. The cry of a wounded beast. I tightened my grip on the spear and approached the structure. The bridge was quite rustic, a bit unstable, but it did its job well. Pieces of wood connected by ropes made from the hair of some creature. And in its midst, I saw, trying to reach the other side, with a broken leg and staining the loose planks with a grayish blood, a kind of gazelle. Her fur was white. She had 2 pairs of horns and eyes. She seemed, at times, to have difficulty breathing and grunting in pain as she moved forward. Desperation makes you do stupid things. Without thinking, I threw myself against the peculiar gazelle, driving my stake into her back and piercing her chest. She screamed in pain and fell onto the bridge with a wet sound. I remember smiling and thinking I could easily adapt to that place. After all, it was just a matter of being smart. I didn't know at the time that it wasn't just humans that hunted using bait. In the Book of Enoch, it's mentioned that angels fall from their celestial post to the present day. You might even think that being angels, they would be remnants of goodness in such a cruel place. But remember that just like most of those in Gehenna, they fell for a reason. I was so busy trying to carry the gazelle's body to the other side of the river that I didn't notice the shadow in the sky had returned and was coming towards me. The first thing I felt was its twisted beak tearing off a piece of my right shoulder and missing my head by inches. Screaming in pain, I turned to face my attacker and my heart nearly stopped. It was beautiful. Terrifyingly beautiful. A level of symmetry that shouldn't exist in this world. Its main body resembled that of a white horse, covered in hundreds of constantly moving eyes. Where its eyes would normally be, a golden ring sat, encircling its head and reflecting my horrified expression. On each of its legs, a small pair of black wings beat constantly, while its entire body emitted an intense glow that seemed to hold my eyes captive. But I felt it wasn't just that. Its body expanded through planes I couldn't see. Invisible hands massaged my head, trying to force their way into my mind. I stood there, incredulous and trying to process and trying to rationalize the divine beast hovering in front of me, ready for the next onslaught. With a piercing roar, the angel snapped me out of panic mode and I rushed to pull out my spear, but the tough carcass of the animal refused to surrender my weapon. Once again, I ran for my life. The other side of the river harbored a set of steep hills with slippery rocks emitting a faint smell of ammonia. The unknown had proved deadly, but between it and the wrathful angel, I decided to test my chances. Looking back, I couldn't see him anymore, but in my mind, I could feel an intruder, analyzing my thoughts, knowing the core of my being, predicting my movements. I felt a sharp pressure in my head. I couldn't escape. A being that doesn't need to touch you to kill you. Desperation and fear took over my body. and I just climbed. Among the rocks and dozens of hills, it was hard to find me, but he could feel me. I knew that. I could also feel him in my mind. I felt his fury, his anger. He told me everything he would do to me when he found me. In a sophisticated and forgotten language, but for some reason I understood. I just huddled among the rocks and cried, the danger increasing every minute. And in a ridiculous act of desperation, I prayed for mercy, which is the worst thing you can do with an angel nearby. It's like setting up a signal saying, "Hey, I'm here." After that, he easily found me. I thought I was going to die, but he wouldn't spare me from torment so easily. With his perfect, gleaming teeth, he grabbed me, and I was taken toward the spire, toward his nest. Angels are like cats. They love to play with their prey. I was bound to a rock on one of the protrusions of the spire, hundreds of meters from the ground. He would disappear for days, return, and slowly feed on me, relishing in my suffering. I thought I would be condemned to this for the next few years, and I would be, were it not for a fortunate surprise. One day, after a fruitful session of torture by my captor, I was awakened by gentle touches on my head. Before me, covered in dirty rags, boots made from the skin of some animal previously unknown to me, and a strange metallic mask, stood the first sinner I had seen in hell. The library is closing and this chair is killing my back, so I guess this is where I'll stop for today. Remember, hell is a deceitful place. Never let yourself believe in false promises of salvation. All right. Guess who has a personal laptop now and doesn't have to subject themselves to strange looks at the library? Now, I'll be able to post here more frequently and maybe properly answer your comments. A lot has happened this past week. I almost lost a finger trying to open a frozen pack of meat with an old knife, got enough money for a crappy computer and even a proper, slightly used bed. But before I delve into my horrible memories covered in sulfur, there are a few things I need to clarify. It was brought to my attention that even though I talk a lot about myself, I kind of forget to say anything about me. I guess a little introduction is long overdue. You all can call me Nate, short for Nathaniel. When I died, I was 35 years old. After that, I remained 35 for a few centuries. The concept of age loses its importance when you die, one of the few positives, I'd say. Without beating around the bush, I'm not a good person. If I were, all these posts wouldn't exist after all. Before I died, I would have never admitted to this. I was blinded by greed and pride. I probably would have said some bullshit like, I'm not evil, just realistic. In today's world, to stay on top, you must keep others down. I ask not to be glorified in any part of this. I remember several occasions that would make you realize what a shitty person I am, even though I'm currently trying to change. Anyway, we'll have plenty more time to talk about me after we get the important things out of the way. And today's post is important, so pay attention and remember, when the moon disappears in lust, beware the one who sings in the dark. The circle of lust is considered by many as the vestibule of the abyss. Almost all newcomers, with very few exceptions, fall into it when crossing the thin veil of reality upon death. It's essentially a mixed zone that combines with small samplings of everything the Nine Circles has to offer. An area mainly populated by low-caste demons, small fallen angels, and newcomers, most of whom are desperate for an exit and have no idea what to expect here. Therefore, lust is used as a hunting ground by various things, from demons to even humans. Perhaps if I had known how low humans had to sink to survive in that place, I would have been more cautious and wouldn't have suffered so much. It had been some time since I was taken from the clutches of my captor. Some flashes came to mind. The recurring torture sessions. That person appearing without any indication, the descent down the spire wall, where I was tied to their body like a backpack. Ugh, the path I was being led through was torturous. Ahead of me lay plains of obsidian covered by thin layers of ash. In the distance, a chain of twisted mountains stretched toward the sky. For a moment, I allowed myself to falter. I thought I was being rescued and taken to some kind of refuge. I imagined myself filling my belly with succulent meats, sleeping on a soft bed and quenching my thirst with pure crystalline water. Friends aren't tied up. When I noticed the tightly twisted wire in my hands and feet, I tried to protest, to throw myself off their back, to cut myself free, but I was terribly weak. The person carrying me noticed that I was awake. I still remember perfectly my first interaction with that sneaky son of a bitch. Look who woke up. You're very unlucky, you know. Angel's plaything the first few days. And they say I don't stand a chance in this place. I couldn't see his face behind all the claws, but I had the feeling he was smiling. Who are you? Where are you taking me? Oh, my, such rude fresh meat. Not even a hi or hello. Shit, I would accept a how was your day? It's not like you're being very polite. Hey, I'm a veteran, so I get a pass. Do you want to tell me where the hell you're taking me already? I'm not playing games with you, man. Oh, neither am I, young fella. You, my friend, are Jack's property now. You were on his turf, you know, so now he gets to do whatever he wants with you. Turf? I was being eaten alive by some horse monster creepy hybrid bird all the way up that giant thing. How does that constitute as his turf? Please, I just want to go home and see my wife. The dirty rat let out a laugh, interrupted by a horrible dry cough. A home? This is your home now, buddy. Haven't you realized yet, poor thing? That's why you became an angelic snack. There's not a single good screw in that empty head of yours. But don't worry. Even useless ones like you have a place in Jack's empire. Aw, just wait until I deliver you. He'll be so proud. Maybe he'll even give me my own wife, a little plaything just for me. No matter how much I struggled, I couldn't free myself. Fatigue and hunger took their toll. All I could think about was this Jack character. I had no plans of being taken so easily, but until I recovered, there wasn't much I could do. For hours, we walked beneath the turbulent clouds of Gehenna. Occasionally, a cacophony of deep, uninterrupted cries would emerge in the distance. And during these moments, my new captor would lay still on the ground and cover himself with dust. Something was following us. My limited experience with infernal beings told me that we couldn't stay still. My heart raced every second we stayed there, exposed, motionless on the ground. But I dared not express my discontent. I feared that whatever that thing was, it could hear me and find us. At that moment, I was in a sea of emotions. Part of me relieved to have left the spire. Another part terribly scared of not knowing what fate awaited me at the end of our journey. It felt like I was out of the frying pan and into the fire. As we resumed our path, I noticed that, for the first time, the sky was clearing. We were far enough from the cursed city to escape its influence. Looking back, I could see the perfect, unnatural circle of clouds covering Gehenna and the surrounding areas. I could see insect-like beasts flying towards the city, drawn to it like moths to a flame, making it their lair, their hunting grounds, and forever home. But for some reason, I felt that going that far off the metropolis was equally dangerous. Maybe it was the stillness in the air. Maybe the messed up situation I found myself in. but all of my senses were on high alert and didn't seem to want to calm down anytime soon. The clear sky gave me my first ever vision of the moon, or if you want to follow the locals, the eye of the behemoth. A gigantic globe of flesh up in the sky. You stare at it too much and you figure out why they call it an eye. It seems to watch your every move once you're out of the city bounds, like some kind of twisted guard. My captor didn't seem to mind its presence, but I couldn't take my eyes off of it. The way it pulsated every once in a while. It felt alive and conscious. After some time walking, we got to some kind of camp made in haste. A few big loose rocks put together in a tent formation, an unlit bonfire, and what seemed to be beds made out of black leaves and ragged clothes. It didn't look comfortable at all. That rat threw me on the ground by the bonfire and sat inside the tent. "Now, my dear fella, we'll wait for the other collectors, which might take a while, so behave, and no loud noises, got it? Or else your one-way ticket to the Silver City will have to be revoked, 'cause you'll be dead. I'll cut your throat and eat you right here." "Eat me? What kind of sick bastard are you?" "The kind that stays alive no matter what. And if you keep on babbling like that, I won't be the only problem you'll have to face." As if following a cue, the loud and deep cries of some creature echoed in the distance. I made sure to lower my voice after that. "What the hell was that?" "Shut up if you don't want to find out." I wanted to ask about Jack, the Silver City, the collectors, but my fear spoke louder than my curiosity. So I just gave up and waited, not knowing what was hunting us in the dark. The eye was growing ever so slightly by the minute, its vision a constant reminder that safety was but an illusion, bound to break any time soon. As if confirming my fears, the eye once again began to change, this time growing darker and darker, as if its flesh was spoiling before my very eyes. "Oh shit, not now!" That moment, I knew we were in some deep shit. The sinner looked at me, considered something in his head, and gave up. "Well, you're in luck, pal. I can't afford to let you die after all the trouble I went through just to get you here," he said, getting up in a hurry and pushing me inside the tent. "What's happening? Why is the moon gone?" Looking up, I couldn't see the moon anymore. I felt like it was still there somewhere, just so embraced by darkness it was impossible to find it. Bit by bit, a strange shadow descended from the sky and into the land. Everything was engulfed in a cold void. I couldn't see. I tried to speak, but was unable to hear my own voice. I couldn't even feel anything other than that cruel presence. I don't think I'll ever forget it. It was like I could feel its sadness. Something was circling the camp, taking gentle steps towards the middle. I was quivering. It was so cold that it hurt to breathe. I could barely think. And then, I heard it sing. The circle of lust houses one of the most dangerous of the 7 deadly sins, one of the biggest hunters of men and corrupters of heart. The succubus. Not a succubus. I'm talking about the original one. The primordial being that gave birth to the whole species. The one that still haunts the human plane. It was the inspiration for thousands of tales across the globe. The mermaid, the huldra, the liturg, all but facades of the same unholy being. The same one that chooses us as prey. When it sang, I felt like I was using cocaine for the first time again. The high was immediate and powerful. It came in waves, lifting me up into the sky, only to let me fall into despair. I needed her. I was nothing without her. I tried to fight, to free myself and run towards endless joy and pleasure, but something kept me from doing it. It started to sing louder and louder, getting angrier and sounding less angelic with each passing second. Suddenly, that dreamlike, almost orgasmic in nature state I was in changed into a complete nightmare. It was no longer asking. It demanded my surrender. My senses came back to me, only to bring me more pain. The first thing I saw was fire, covering my body and burning me alive. My skin was melting before my very eyes. My mind froze, trying to understand the creature outside the tent. The torso of a woman, hips and legs like those of a spider. Where its arms would be, two bat-like wings extended several feet in length. Its head reminded me of a perfect, genderless mannequin, except it had no eyes, no ears, or nose. Only one big circular mouth covering its entire face. Don't look at it, it'll break your mind. But it was already too late. It was getting tired of waiting. I could feel its wrath. It no longer wished to toy with us. Now, it was going in for the kill. My mind was buzzing. I felt a killer migraine getting worse and worse. I felt the urge to vomit, blood coming out of my nose. We were about to die. But then I heard a weird chant, followed by a deafening shot. The succubus screamed in pain, breaking the spell and rushing toward the newcomers. "You guys took your sweet fucking time, didn't ya?" With my vision blurred, I could barely see the group standing on top of the hill. I was able to distinguish black robes and torches. Some were carrying rifles adorned with weird flowers. "Shut up and get your ass over here, Moss. We need to go now." Once again, I was being carried away from danger, the buzzing of shots still roaring in my ears. I could see other naked sinners, possibly newcomers like me, chained up on top of an old modded pickup truck, with spikes and plates of metal all around it. The last thing I remember before blacking out was the cry of pure rage from the succubus and a wave of pain passing through my body. I really need to start getting ready for my shift now, so I guess I'll stop here for today. In any society, communities exist to create hope, a better future and security for all. People get together to do the things they aren't able to do themselves. But in hell, as well as any other place, the corruption at the heart of humanity eventually breaks down every society, turning it into a play where only a selected few control the strings and make sure everything works toward fulfilling their sadistic dreams. Somehow, in the Silver City, things can get even worse. I was about to learn that. There's something up here with me. Since I returned to the world of the living, I've been doing my best to become an active member of society again, and try and earn my ticket to heaven in the meantime. Even though I can't afford this luxury right now, I always donate a portion of my salary to charity, do volunteer work on weekends, and help out at a community kitchen on Thursdays after work. All of this is to avoid going back there. But I don't know how well this can work, nor do I know if by gaining this new life, I also received a new chance. There's something I haven't told you. The truth is that my torment hasn't completely stopped. Since I returned from the dead, my nights are filled with agony and terror. The nightmares are terrible, but when I wake up shrouded in the darkness of my room, I can discern things in the shadows. Arachnid-like forms with dozens of eyes and mouths that sing profanities. Throughout the day, I can still see them, in the corner of my eye, almost like a permanent silhouette. A reminder that they're watching me, just waiting for my last breath to take me back via the VIP express lane. I think Samael didn't like being deceived one bit. Now, however, it's not the time to recount my escape. There are still many dangers I've yet to warn you about. And if after your death, you find yourself wandering through the infernal circles, surely at some point you'll come across the Silver City, the last vestige of community in hell. Gehenna is like a living structure, a fabric composed of buildings, streets, and alleys that stretches vertically through the 9 circles that compose the abyss. When I died, I arose just like many others in lust, the 3rd circle of hell, contrary to what Dante claimed. The real order of the circles would be limbo, greed, lust, wrath, gluttony, heresy, violence, treachery, and finally pride. The goal of the collectors was set like a jewel in the center of limbo. It's funny. In Dante's work, the city is portrayed as a paradise away from heaven for those with good hearts who never accepted Jesus into their lives. Their only punishment would be to never glimpse the face of God. Damn, I wish it was like that. I woke up with the metallic taste of blood still in my mouth. A gentle voice was saying something, but with my ears ringing, I couldn't make out anything. I could tell there was something in front of me. The smell was good. My stomach reminded me I was yet to eat anything. Without much choice, I accepted the charity and ate. The taste was surprisingly good. If I were to describe it, it's something close to pork. I spent some time just eating and recovering. I was even given a canteen of warm water. It tasted weird, but it's not like I was going to complain. As my senses returned, I could understand what the young man in front of me was saying. I still remember his face, without any bruises, a shallow beard, and a glimmer of hope that didn't match the place at all. Feeling better now? I guess. Where are we now? Is that thing still here? I tried sitting up, but a sharp pain in my chest stopped me from moving. Hey, take it easy now. You're so skinny you look like a twig. When was the last time you ate? About 10 seconds ago. He smiled a bit. Well, at least you're good enough to enjoy the ride. With that, I felt prompted to look around, and finally noticed that we were on the back of a strange pickup truck. Not only that, some sort of locomotive seemed to form around us. In total, there were 4 vehicles. Our pickup stood at the center, with metal plaques around its frame and sharp grates on the ends confining us. On our left, an old Mustang suffered to keep itself close traveling on such uneven terrain. On our right, I could see Mice on top of an old motorcycle giggling to himself. I silently wish he crashed. Leading the group ahead, I could see the rear of a black van, and finally, following behind, I saw what appeared to be a Honda with smashed windows and covered in dents. Where are they taking us? I have no idea, but anything must be better than these fields. Recalling Mice's delusions, I wasn't so sure about that. Who are you? Are you with them too? I think we're in the same boat, buddy. The last guy who called me buddy tied me up and dragged me into the clutches of a monster. I don't like them one bit, but from what I saw when we arrived, he was trying to protect you. So you really are one of them. I already said we're in the same shithole. I got caught by the masked one while trying to hunt dinner, he said, pointing out the window towards the driver of the pickup, a tall, muscular man wearing a strange wooden mask. Sorry the past few days have been so... God, if you only knew what I've been through. The young man chuckled sincerely. Friend, I'm sure whatever you've been through, I've lived it a dozen times already. The name's John. Nice to meet you. Well, John, you can call me Nate. I'd shake your hand, but I nudged towards the wires on my hands. Could be worse. He gestured towards his feet. They were chopped off. Holy shit, I'm sorry, John. These guys are insane. Don't be. They'll be back once I die. But I have a feeling they won't let that happen so soon. We could already see the spires slowly coming into view on the horizon. You sound used to all of this. Don't tell me. You're new. I still can't believe this is all real. You better come to terms with it fast. This place don't take pity on the weak, he said. We didn't feel like chatting after that. I wanted to ask about what I was given to eat, but something told me I'd be better off not knowing. We traveled far towards the spire, Gehenna slowly embracing us with its dark skies. From up close, I was able to see an opening in the base of the spire. The twisted terrain of the fields gave way to broken roads and dusted buildings, and screams of despair found their way back to my ears as we passed near the tar pits. Haunted by memories of my arrival, I couldn't help but search for the beasts that mauled me in the confusing streets of the city. I don't know if it was because of the sound of the engines or the size of our group, but I didn't see them among the wreckage and alleyways. As we approached the spire, a strange icy breeze embraced us. The shock was so intense that I lost my breath, trembling as I noticed a thin layer of ice forming rapidly on the pickup truck. Try to control your breathing, it'll pass soon. What is this now? Specters. As we finally reached the center of lust, I realized we weren't alone. The base of the spire held an immense arched opening from which a dark interior was barely visible. Above the entrance, crucified on the wall, I saw a man. The slight movement of his head and his blue eyes made my stomach churn. The culprits for the sudden cold gathered below the man in desperation. There were dozens of them, humanoid beings emitting a faint glow and seeming to levitate. Their cries echoed through the city, spreading along with their icy presence. The man only watched them, one by one, but said nothing. He seemed to be judging them. The engines shut off, and one by one the collectors descended from the vehicles. Mice was the first to approach. The specters recoiled from him like cockroaches fleeing from light. He then looked the man in the eyes, bowed, and said, "Oh, Aeacus, king of Aegina. My heart is not pure for rest, my eyes are blind to injustice, and my fists only weigh for my desires. From dust I came, and to dust I return. My soul judged to forever burn, so I beg you to open the doors to my torment." The man's eyes locked onto Mice for a moment. Then his lips whispered something in an elaborate tongue, and the darkness of the entrance turned into a scarlet mass. I didn't know about the kings back then. Aeacus is the easiest to convince. He oversees the higher circles. They say if you're under Minos's gaze, however, I hope you enjoy the lower circles because he's unlikely to grant you passage. And if you're a special kind of unlucky, I suggest you don't even try to approach Radamanthus unless you want a one-way ticket to Pride. The collectors then pulled us out of the cars, displaying us like trophies in an organized line. I had to support John on my shoulders. Otherwise, they would have made him crawl the rest of the way. From the other cars, a few more people emerged. Other unfortunate souls with the same destination as mine. I saw a beautiful woman with short red hair and brown eyes. She was injured with several cuts on her back. The collector taking her out of the van seemed pleased. I tried not to dwell on it too much. She stared at me intensely, looking scared. A man had to be forcibly removed from the Honda by two collectors. He was big and strong, dark-skinned with furious eyes. long braids cascading from his head to the middle of his back, a terrible scar showing on his left arm. To this day, I have no idea how they managed to capture that bastard. Later, he would tell me that they didn't get him until after he'd taken down some of them. Finally, an old man with a band over his eyes was pushed into line. He looked so worn down that I thought I would see him turning to dust at any moment. Mice then made his way to the entrance and was swallowed by the mass. The collectors forced us to enter. One by one, I saw everyone being pushed into the unknown. Looking around, I tried to think of something, some escape route. "Don't do anything stupid. It won't work," John whispered in my ear. I thought about throwing him at them and running for my life. I didn't know him. Didn't know a damn thing about him except his name. A glance at the collector's weapon made me change my mind. I wouldn't get far, even if I did find an opening. Finally, my turn came. With the weight of John still on my shoulders, I walked to the entrance with my heart pounding in fear. The mass that filled it seemed to react to me, stretching to cover my body. The scarlet glow blinding me as the collectors urged me to hurry. I reached out my hand and felt a slight resistance, almost like touching cold gelatin. I felt it pulling me, and before my head was completely swallowed, I held my breath. My body was warm. It was like being bathed in soup. Every exposed inch of my skin burning, but the agony was only beginning. I felt that strange mass invading me, entering through my nose, ears, and eyes. It hurt. I tried to scream, but my lungs were filled with the alien substance that forced its way through my organs. I felt like I was about to lose consciousness. A shockwave ran through my body. I felt as if I was being torn into 1,000 pieces and reformed, my consciousness used as a child's toy. And then it was spat out. I barfed on the gray grass that solemnly clung to me. John lay beside me, eyes rolled back, red fluid still trickling from his mouth. I didn't have time to worry about him. Before me, proudly stood what could only be described as a monument of sin. Far from the light of hope it once was, now taken and calloused, abused and defiled by the filthy ideals of the damned scum. Its golden streets don't shine. Its security only harbors hate. Its cracked walls don't protect, they only confine. Even though I didn't know much about hell, didn't know its history or care about its purpose, I could see in that moment that I was looking at the greatest disrespect to the sacred that could exist. An empire built with blood and erected by desire. The Silver City opened its gates to me, with the intention of never letting me go again. The other collectors arrived, and one by one, we were introduced to the next 40 years of our lives. The memories of this city are painful. I tried to ditch this shit given the purpose of it all, but a drag is necessary if I'm really going to recall the decades I spent under that tyrant's rule. Passing through the rusty gates, the lower city is the first thing you see. Jack leaves this region of the Silver City for his merchants to sell their findings in the lower circles, where everywhere you look, prostitutes and slaves accompany the more fortunate. Jack's personal guard takes advantage of his authority to get everything they want without spending a penny, of course. Linked to the lower city by a rudimentary elevator, the pleasure zone casts its glow over those below. A neighborhood where the best drinks, drugs, and alterations can easily be found. The hunters and collectors usually walk around there, spending their earnings to calm their vices and complaining about their king's insane demands. But by far, the most striking sight is a castle covered in soot, built at the highest level of the city, where only Jack's personal circle can tread without being summoned. That's exactly where we were being taken. John was still unconscious, being carried by our captors. As we walked under the guns, naked and defenseless, the malicious glares of the vendors assessed us as new merchandise. My feet ached. Full of blisters, I couldn't feel my hands anymore. looking at a toothless man being pulled by a chain around his neck. I wondered if that would be my fate. Desperation was beginning to consume me. We ascended to the pleasure zone by elevator, the same one powered by the brute force of several slaves harnessed to the wall, their hands raw from continuous and repetitive effort. The hallucinogenic fumes from the laboratories filled the street of the neighborhood. I felt my heart race, my skin tingle, and a sweet smell invading my mind. The woman accompanying us seemed to recognize the substance as she lunged towards the source of the vapors. Mice kicked her in the stomach, making her kneel, grabbed her by the hair, and laughed. "You addict, you've used this shit before, haven't you? Look at the way you're trembling. If they don't send you to the brothel, I might have an idea what to do with you." She didn't seem to understand or care, drooling from her mouth and experiencing small spasms as the drug filled her lungs. Wish I could say I avoided it, but this shit is strong. Within a few minutes, I was almost as high as when the succubus attacked. We then walked through the alleyways towards a staircase carved in marble. A sinner was overdosing against the steps. Mice shot him in the head and threw him aside. One moment he was alive, and the next, the remnants of his brain adorned the ground. I gasped for air, my vision darkening. I meant nothing to them. They could dispose of me whenever they wanted. I felt like I was going to die. I felt like I was going back to the tar pits, seeing myself suffering and being devoured for ages, running only to be captured, no rest, no warning. What kind of being would create such a rotten place? Why did he have the right to read my soul and throw me towards this flaming lake? It's not fair. It's sick. As I climbed the stairs, stepping on the remnants of the sinner's mind, I wondered if God was watching me at that moment. Maybe he was having fun. The biblical hell holds a king. It shelters demons and powerful beings born from darkness itself. And, as you already know, beings made by the Creator's own hand. It wouldn't be at that moment that I would meet Samael, but alongside the self-proclaimed human king, I met his right-hand beast. When the doors of the castle opened, I fell to my knees on the ground. An angelic figure, with the aura of pure evil. A feminine body, dressed in white adorned with jade. 3 pairs of long and golden wings kept her hovering a few meters above the ground. On her face, a twisted helmet with an eternal black flame at its peak, portraying what was, what is, and what will come. The base of her helmet completely covers her eyes, squeezing them with such force that blood constantly drips to the ground. Her face constantly changes. A slender young woman, a frightened child, an irritated elder, a black goat, a hungry tarantula, an unnamed beast, an indescribable void. In her hands, a chain hangs a clock, which constantly moves, which moves constantly. It tries to guess the hour that only he knows. Constantly wrong, corrects itself, recoils, recalculates, wrong, corrects itself, recoils, recalculates, wrong. Such a beautiful creature fell alongside the morning star with 1/3 of the stars to forever hate us, to extinguish everything and everyone. Who was I compared to such perfection? Who was I compared to such obscenity? I felt broken. I felt complete, terrified, emancipated. 1,000 mouths saying in 1,000 languages in my mind, all equally correct, all equally wrong. The duality that leads to madness. In my heart, he introduced himself. Astaroth, the Grand Duke of Hell. With a flick of his hand, he disappeared, but I still felt him watching us, assessing us. Seated on a broken throne, there was the face of control. Almost as tall and robust as my captured companion, a short, defined beard adorned a ruthless face marked by battles. Gray hair and a leather cloak, a silver medallion around his neck, and a shining red ring on his left hand, eating grapes like a Greek emperor. Jack graced us with his presence. Mice once again took the initiative. "Oh, my lord, we have found a fresh meat of the highest quality to expand your empire, mostly young and strong, and the old one is wise and knows the ancient rituals." Jack looked at us as if we were worms, evaluating us like a spoiled child receiving gifts at Christmas. "You bring me trash and expect gratitude? If this is what you consider good quality, perhaps it's time to revoke your position." Jack's ring began to glow, and I felt Astaroth's strong presence growing. Mice quickly knelt and spoke once again. "Oh, my king! One of them appears to be marked." Mice then looked at me with a malicious smile, sending a shiver down my spine. Jack observed me, the disdain in his eyes palpable. He seemed to notice something at that moment, scratched his beard, and smiled. "Oh, mice, I can always count on you to keep me entertained. Take him to the pit. Send the others to the dungeon. There may be something useful in this batch after all." Before I could protest, I was struck on the head with the butt of a gun, and I lost consciousness. Sorry, I need a moment. Just remembering the terrible nights I spent in that place makes me feel sick. Man, I hope smoking doesn't count as too big of a sin. When I woke up, I was chained to a wooden pillar by the neck, with several other sinners chained around me. The place was poorly lit, and I could smell feces and urine. They didn't even release us to go to the bathroom. In front of me, Jack stood with 2 guards. "Ah, good morning, Sleeping Beauty. I'm sorry to disturb your rest, but I have some questions, and if you cooperate, you may find yourself involved in something much bigger and more important than your miserable afterlife." "Screw you. I've seen things your people do. You're all crazy. I don't want anything to do with you." Jack's ring began to glow, and Astaroth's silhouette became visible even in the deep darkness. "For your own good, I hope you learn to have good manners. Now tell me, where is he?" "What?" The ring glowed, and Astaroth entered my mind. The concept of emptiness is terrifying. Non-existence. It's dreadful. Emptiness occupied existence before everything existed. In the beginning, there was nothing. And then, there was God. My consciousness faded away. I felt the void corrupting my flesh prison. It's not a lack of senses. It's nothing. Sounds didn't vanish, they turned into nothingness. Along with sensations, memories, my existence. I was completely devoured. I wanted to scream, but there was no voice, no will. I wanted to exist, but there was never even an I. I vanished completely, and then I was catapulted back into existence, where I could feel everything. The infinite, it destroys. Through Aseroth's eyes, I understood, not even in 1,001 lives could I touch 1% of the truth. My brain burned, flooded with everything that was, everything that would come. I cried, I screamed. Agony drove me to madness. Time made no sense anymore. And then everything stopped. In despair, I screamed. I cried like a child. Jack embraced me with the tenderness of a mother as I collapsed into his chest. He gently stroked my head while speaking softly. Poor thing. So much suffering, so much lamentation. Pain is a choice, and I don't want it for you. I love you. I love all my possessions from the bottom of my heart. I only want what's best for you. But for that, I need your help. I want your pain to stop. Help me make it stop. You just need to tell me. Where is he? I didn't want to return to nothingness. I didn't want to suffer with knowledge. Desperately, I lied. I said I knew where whoever he was looking for was. I would show him. He just had to let me go. Jack acquired a sad expression, gently lifted my face and said, Oh, child, why do you lie to me? With the scarlet glow of the ring, once again I ceased to exist. Catapulted between two extremes, blood streaming from my ears, I laughed, I cried, I begged. All to make it stop. For him to remove that being from the room. I just wanted peace. I felt my cells giving up, exploding and restructuring, and memories were erased and returned, lived 1,000 times per second. My wife, my daughter, the drugs, the betrayal, the accident, the body, the hospital, the fall. Once again, everything stopped. I spat blood on Jack's cloak, who asked me again, Where is he? Come on, damn it, just tell me. He mocked you, he touched you. Come on, where the hell is Samael? Tell me and I'll leave you alone. I pleaded. I tried to tell him that I didn't know who he was talking about. I promised obedience, my life. Anything for mercy. Once again, he sent me to the void. For countless nights, the cycle repeated itself. I have no idea how long I was tortured in that place. Eventually, Jack began to use me in other ways. My days were divided between slave labor in the lower city and nights of torment in Jack's palace. At the time, I didn't understand how he couldn't see that he was wrong. Clearly, there was nothing special about me. I couldn't lead him to Samael. I was just a damned soul who could barely endure the first days in the abyss. I just hadn't realized that Jack already had the certainty that I was different. After all, how could I be a nobody if Aseroth couldn't exact the truth from me, and they had to resort to torture? Hope vanished from my chest. I didn't know if I would ever escape from there, if I would see John again before my soul was corrupted by the Grand Duke. The years dragged on, and Jack's fury only grew. Fortunately for me, in my 4th year in the Silver City, I gained a new cellmate, the old man who had been brought in the same group as me. Little did I know that he would be my first clue to the way out of here. I'm tired of remembering those horrible years, so I think I'll stop here for today. Clinging to hope in hell is as useless as using petrol to put out a fire. You'll only end up dying either way. But in the realm of insanity, it might not be all that crazy to think there might be a way out of the suffering. Hey guys, I'm back. I apologize for the long period without news. I received an unexpected visit, and because of it, I was bedridden for quite some time. I'm grateful that my boss saw everything happen. Saw what he thought was happening, and assured me that I would receive financial assistance while I recover. Did you know that if you don't have most of your documents, the hospital bombards you with questions? It's pretty obvious, isn't it? It's a shame I didn't think of that while I was being taken there. I could have jumped out of the car and avoided the headache. Jokes aside, the last few weeks have brought me the answers. Maybe I have a chance to correct some mistakes. Maybe all of this wasn't just a desperate act to gain favor with the Lord. This place has been much more useful than I anticipated. Today's post is most important because I finally had the chance to talk about the most precious information one can have when condemned to the abyss: how to escape it. But before I start walking through my memories, I need to tell you guys how I ended up in this miserable state. In short, I got into a fistfight with an angel. And if you think I got all busted up, you should see the other guy. As I mentioned in my last post, beings from the depths of Tartarus have been haunting me since my escape. Jailers of rotting flesh, insectoids with multiple faces that recount countless insults to my person. With focus and meditation, I can ignore them during the day, endure them at night, and pray not to encounter them in my dreams. Although this last one always seems to happen, I usually manage to carry on with my life relatively well. I just didn't know that hell wasn't the only realm keeping an eye on me. With that in mind now, I should have noticed that something was wrong. I've been having strange encounters. A taxi driver who, instead of taking me to my apartment, guided me without me noticing to the nearest Catholic church and vanished with the car as quickly as he arrived. A lady in the park who watched over me throughout the period I spent enjoying my late afternoon near the lake. I don't remember the color of her eyes, but something tells me she had more than one pair. And the most recent one, a beggar who threw me against the wall as I exited through the back of the burger joint with my boss. I couldn't see him arrive because he wasn't there initially. It's as if he had materialized from thin air in a matter of seconds. I remember opening the door and heading towards the gutter. Then an unbearable heat enveloped my body for a brief moment, and I was thrown against the wall. At first, I thought it was just a random bum trying to rob me, but the spectral glow in his eyes, the way reality slightly warped around his body, and his voice that echoed in my mind like the roar of a beast told me otherwise. I panicked. You see, I'm doing everything I can to avoid setting foot in Gehenna again. Until that attack, I clung to the comforting fact that I'm out of that prison and that they can't hurt me anymore. So, when one of the soldiers from the celestial ranks pushed me against the wall, wrapping his heavy hands around my neck, A primordial fear crumbled my will. I could barely struggle as he roared in my mind. To dust thou returned, and cannot stay here. Thy soul, stained by the ashes of hell, is marked by the blood of the star. In thee he sees a way out. In thee the holy sees a mistake. In his eyes, I could recognize pity and hatred. He saw me as something so small and fragile, something to be protected from the claws of sin. One of the Creator's toys that had been so rudely broken and was now fighting against the rules that guide existence. In his own words, a mistake. One that needed to be fixed. Even with such a fragile appearance, his strength was tremendous. He squeezed my throat while whispering apologies in my mind. I could see demons approaching in the darkness, ready to grasp my soul in my final moments. My heart racing, my mind almost devoid of oxygen. I could no longer think straight. I was going to die. I stretched my arms against the wall. Anything would do, any way to defend myself. My hand closed around something cold and heavy, and with all my strength, I pulled. Adrenaline is a powerful drug. I managed to wrench one of the rusty bars from the window and hit him with all I had. The blow sent him into the street, where a van ran over him shortly after. My boss insists that I had a panic attack and that in my altered state, I ended up throwing a loose iron rod at a school van, scaring some poor kid shitless, before fainting on the ground. This brings me many questions. Now, more than ever, I feel paranoid, watched, and knowing that people wouldn't even know if I were being attacked terrifies me. I feel like my time is running out, and something horrible is about to happen. So, without further ado, I must fulfill my purpose, and at least help you while we still walk in the same plane. Hell is a place of torture and punishment. The reward our sins earn us in the afterlife, but it's also a prison. It's not just for the sinners who wander the circles in search of a light that has long rejected them, but also for the original evil, the serpent that hissed hatred long before humanity even dreamed of existing. The being forged when the Creator and the original angels still roamed the cosmos, shaping and expanding it. He was once God's favorite, but has since fell with a third of the stars. The one who commands faithful followers both on earth and in the depths. The concept of time in hell is complicated. Some circles distort your perception, and 2 hours can suddenly become 2 minutes. Combine this with the lack of natural light and claustrophobic confinements, and you will see that most of the slaves in the Silver City go through years like zombies, one day indistinguishable from the next, unaware if they've been there for a day or a decade. In my 4th year as Jack's torture toy, this condition was affecting me aggressively. Over the years, Jack had opened my schedule, allowing me to work under the orders of some of his followers in other regions of his kingdom, still confined behind the walls and never seeing the light of day. My schedule was cruel and irregular, so much so that even today, I must admit that I am not confident in stating that only 4 years have passed. In the morning, Astaroth would play with my mind. I lived 1,000 lives with 1,000 deaths. The profane void and the painful light of the vastness, my mind reduced to ashes, and then expanded beyond the confines of my skull. Immediately after, I was blindfolded and taken to the pleasure zone, where I was forced to synthesize drugs and beverages from the blood of beasts and fungi. In the floor directly below one of the main sales points of the Scarlet Maiden, the most purchased drug in the city, I worked for hours grinding and heating, accumulating terrible blisters and burns while my mind was numbed by the aroma and visions. In a hot and cramped room, I was joined by 5 other slaves, and there we spent most of the day. Deaths from overdose were common. Some fell from excessive work, others were killed for pure pleasure. Our guards were always incredibly high and enjoyed mistreating us to maintain their sense of power. Pawns so low in the hierarchy of the infernal king, probably venting years of spite in our daily sessions. From time to time, the owner of the operation would come down to check the quality of the product, which was never refined enough, and would punish us for it. By order of the king, he wouldn't lay a hand on me, but he made me watch and often forced me to participate in the torture of my colleagues. Fingers cut off, teeth pulled out, hot iron spikes on the backs of those who spilled even a gram of his precious product. The things I was forced to do still keep me awake. And always accompanying him, I saw her. Unfortunately for mice, the girl brought with me did not meet her end in his perverted arms, but in the hands of one of Jack's captains. Always with a distant look, drugged beyond her limit, following her master like an obedient dog. Occasionally, she would watch me with a hint of sanity in her eyes. While her master punished us, she often tried to approach me, but always without success. When the work was done, I was put to sleep with gas and woke up again imprisoned in the palace catacombs, ready to endure another session of agony before sleep. Day after day, this insanity continued. My long-diminished hope was exhausted. I became a shadow, a shell of my former self, ready to follow the next order, begging for mercy that was never granted. This cycle continued until one particular night, when I woke up again below the castle, chained to the wall, with a decrepit old man beside me. For some reason, Astaroth had let me rest that night. I should have suspected something was wrong. In the darkness, his face was hard to discern. I remember terrible dark circles, short and damaged gray hair. His eyes were sunken, pulling you in like ocean waves, his lips cut, and what seemed to be terrible gashes on his neck. "So, it's true?" the old man murmured, breaking the silence. "What are you talking about?" "I've heard that madmen's ravens many times, but this sounds different. There's some ground that supports the theory this time." "I don't have time for the ramblings of a senile old man." "Do you really have the mark of the beast?" I stared into his eyes, recalling the same claim coming from my captor's mouth. That mark! Up until then, I thought it was just an excuse that bastard mice used to save his own neck, one that had cost me 4 years of confinement. But there was a fearful weight in the old man's voice. His words carried a sense of truth. "What is this damn mark? Ever since I set foot in this city, I've been treated like merchandise. My mind is scourged night after night because of this shit. You're all mistaken. You're wasting your time. Leave me alone." "Haven't you noticed anything strange, young man? Well, just a bunch of damn souls in hell. But don't you feel that your stay has been particularly difficult? As if the very grounds fight to keep you here?" I've listened to the ramblings of the collector who found you. You were captured by an angel, weren't you? That doesn't usually happen. Something attracted it, just like the succubus, just like the beast. I'm just a wretched soul. There's nothing more to it. I'm only getting what I deserve. I should have been patient. Holly didn't deserve that, but she was going to tell everything. She was going to show the photos, and I was going to lose my job, my damn family, my house. I saw no other way, and now I'm paying for it. Nothing more, nothing less. Oh, do you really think that's all there is to it? So many here with souls far more rotten than yours, yet still surrounded by pleasure and power. If hell worked as you think, why would Jack have what he has? Why would sinners be able to raise such a heresy as this metropolis? I don't know, damn it. I just want all of this to end. I just want to go home. In the moments that followed, the old man pondered something in his mind, looking avidly into the darkness, fearing we were being watched. And then he said calmly, "I know a way out."